Remember, all episodes, Memphis in May. Go to stspod.club. Be there. All right. We're live from 304 Studios in Jonesboro, Arkansas. This is an stspod.club production. And before I welcome my guest, that is your friend, Sleazy E, that did that theme song. You did a theme song for Rolling into Memphis, the actual second theme song. You did that. Guys, welcome. And I can't say big man. I gotta say it the Memphis way. The big man, K-Toomer. How you doing, K-Toomer?
Man, I'm good, man. Can't complain. How you doing?
Oh, doing great. I appreciate you coming on. This is our 6th annual all episodes Memphis in May. And we're having about 3 episodes a week, and I want to bring a lot of the people from Memphis Wrestling, also some old people from Memphis Wrestling, new people, and people that's been there forever. And we'll talk about your debut in Memphis Wrestling here in a minute. But me and you we communicate every once in a while on Facebook. Don't really know each other, so there's a lot of stuff I don't really know about you. First time I ever saw you was in Newport, Arkansas, and you probably heard me say it on Rolling into Memphis, but I said, damn, he is big. I did not realize you were as big as you are and as wide as you are. And I've been around a lot of guys in the business, and I was just like, damn, this guy's big. And Dustin said, yeah, he's a big guy. And then we talked during the awards, because I looked on Facebook, and we'll talk about that also. And you do all kinds of things. And I was like, dude, just keep doing what you're doing. Music, videos, whatever there is to do in wrestling. And I always say, you could even put the chairs out in the ring if you have to. But you have all this talent that you could do multiple things than just wrestle. But let's go way back to when a K-Toomer become a wrestling fan. How old were you when you started watching wrestling, and what was you watching?
Oh man, really as far back as I can remember, man. My how can I put this? I was adopted as a kid.
Okay.
And you know how that goes sometimes. Adoption kids get their adoption stories. I wasn't really wanted. My grandpa, he was an old bastard. He was an old mean guy. But the only time where he really let us around him was when we were sitting there watching wrestling. Whether it was WCW, at the time, ECW was starting to slide in. This is back when it was still Eastern Coastal or Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Right.
So there would be one of the few times where he would like open up and actually be himself around us. And then so wrestling was off, it would cut off. But like my grandma, she was a big wrestling fan. He was a big wrestling fan. And that was one of the few times I can remember like as like a bonding moment between us all before they passed. So wrestling always been I've always been a fan of wrestling pretty much.
You know, me and my mom actually talked. She's a big fan of yours. As soon as you came up with that T-shirt you're wearing right now, I sent her one. But we were talking the other day. I told her, I said, I'm going to interview K-Toomer, and I always ask them, how did they become a fan? My mom became a wrestling fan by taking me to wrestling one night. One night, the neighbors were going to wrestling, and she said, yeah, we'll go. My dad, he liked to drink on the weekends and didn't stay home a lot. So we went to wrestling, and we bonded over that. My mom still watches wrestling every week. And like I said, a huge fan of yours. So when you were watching, and you can remember watching as a kid, who was your favorite wrestlers on WCW there?
Man, so I came up like right in the middle of the Monday Night Wars. So we would flip back and forth between Monday Night Raw and Monday Night Nitro, and then Nitro started airing the replays like immediately after they went out the air.
Right,
so
yeah.
We would start watching and kind of watch the opening segment, flip over into WWF or WWE, whichever one you want to call them now. And then it would just be a night full of wrestling pretty much. We came up in the middle of the whole Goldberg hype. Like, I remember way back when Goldberg started, when he debuted in that match against Hugh Morris, But like I firmly remember in that time period was right when he was beating Raven for the US title. And so of course we were Goldberg Marks, Harlem Heat Marks, Booker T, Stevie Ray. My grandpa, he was a huge Junkyard Dog fan.
Oh, me too.
A
I
lot of people,
love JYD, especially in Mid South, in the old Mid South. Huge JYD fan.
man, I can still hear my grandpa fussing about Jimmy Vat. Jimmy Vat, you just copying that man. I still remember hearing him yelling at him.
You know what? I've never thought about that, but their characters were very similar. The funny thing is, when it comes to actually wrestling, both of those guys was pretty much the same kind of wrestler. They did it was kind of comedy, or they took a lot of beatings. There was a joke about JYD when he went to WWE. It's there's a match out there somewhere between him and Terry Funk, and one of my friends was friends with Terry, and Terry wasn't too excited about working JYD because JYD couldn't work. He was stiff and he didn't do much, and he wasn't going to do much, kind of thing. And Terry told him just to stand in the middle of the ring and move what direction he came in, him moving to that direction. That whole match is JYD in the middle of the match as Terry Funk bumps all around him. It's either the Spectrum in Philly or Madison Square Garden, one of those old VHSs, but it's hilarious to watch that. But JYD was so popular and so over with JY. It's when that was going on and when Harlem Heat was being huge, there was more division in wrestling where you had black wrestling fans and white wrestling fans. And JYD was he was everybody's favorite. It didn't matter what color, where you came from, what you did, you loved JYD. I can see why your grandpa would love JYD. So you started becoming a fan, and I mean, were you like me? I knew I wasn't. You are, but not me. I'm not athletically able to be a wrestler, and I tried, and I'm smart enough to be able to. I wrestled 18 times. I watched the matches and said, "Oh, BT, you suck. Don't ever do that again." Then I become a manager. I had fun doing that. But at what point did you say, "Hey, I think I want to do this"?
like, don't get me wrong, like wrestling was something I always wanted to do, but it was never anything that I thought would actually be possible because in my area, is nothing here for it. Well, I mean, it is now, but up up until everything that I'm currently doing right now for my area, there was nothing here. It wasn't any companies, promotions, anything like that. And nothing against anybody because I know somebody might hear this and take it the wrong way. But you had the big fish in the small towns who wasn't really inviting or opening new talent or new faces to come in. So
You're right about it. You had somebody that was there. Memphis is not Memphis wrestling now, but during the USWA days in a classic time, there was just only so many people that they were going to let get over, and you weren't going to do that. So in Arkansas, you're in Arkansas,
yep.
and who do you look for to? Well, before I ask you about training, when did you? Because you're a lot younger than me. And you could start getting on the internet, and the internet was strong during the Monday Night Wars. But I come from a day where we got a newsletter, like a 20-page newsletter, kayfabe sheet. I got one of those every week. When did kayfabe die for you? When was you told, hey, I actually know you start learning some inner workings? Was it before you started training, or was you on them websites looking for everything?
Yeah, it was before, like, I was really big on the PWR magazines. So, like a lot of people start off, they're like all WWF fans, WCW fans. Back then, although we loved the wrestling and loved the escape from reality, it wasn't until like getting into the 2000s when I started getting to a point where I can understand what was going on fully outside of it just being big moves and people yelling at the camera. I was real big into like a lot of the styles that pretty much became popular today. So I was real big on PWG. I was real big on Chikara, really, really big on Ring of Honor. And I'm talking about in their infancy stages. when everything was first getting
Right. Yeah.
like my mom's used to fuss at me because every week I was ordering the TNA Asylum pay-per-views every Wednesday. I was really big on that style, and they were kind of exposing the business pretty much. I don't want to say how I'm doing right now. If you follow my personal page, to where they were blurring what's going on in the wrestling world with their real lives, but they were kind of in their lane to where it was like, hey, we understand we're not the mold that the big companies want. We understand that, but we're gonna go ahead and curve our own niche. That's
I
all.
agree. You do. There's something about the business now that's totally different, even in that time period. And it is. You mentioned on social media, and what you do on social media is kind of blurring everything. But you don't. Here's something you don't do. You ask people to come out, and you're going what you're going to do, but you don't. You don't do a promo on somebody that's one of your Facebook friends. So I hate that, man. I hate that. But it's one of those things where you can use social media. Now, if it wasn't for social media, my podcast wouldn't be getting as many people listening to it as that are listening to it. It's all free advertisement. It's a good marketing way, but it's a total different way of wrestling is. Even compared to the last 12, 15 years, you was going to, before you start training, I may have got this wrong, but I remember seeing some rap videos of you before you was a wrestler, right? Was you
Yeah.
doing rap?
So I was really big into music, man, rap, R&B, but not just music, but production, filming, acting. I was really big in all of that. But just like the wrestling world, there's a lot of gatekeepers. If you don't follow certain crowds, you're not gonna get much. I just get tired of the I get tired of the BS. I'm trying to keep it PG. I
You
get
don't
tired.
have to. You don't have to.
I
But
get,
go ahead.
I get tired. I get tired of the BS, man. That went on when it come down to the music business. Like we written songs for movies, TV shows, and getting nothing in return for it. So I hit a period where I was like, man, I'm wasting my time. And I said I wanted to find something else different that I could really put my time, focus, and energy into creatively before I got too old, before it got to a point where I couldn't do anything. And then I'll be looking back mad at myself because I couldn't do anything. So kind of finally found somewhere to go because I had been trying to get into wrestling since like 2007, 2008.
Was you was still watching wrestling on a regular basis, a
Mhm.
fan, knew what was going on, doing your rap stuff, and trying to find somewhere to train, right? Somewhere where there was a ring that you could hone your craft, as they say. Who helped train you, or how did you get started with that?
So well, hold on. Let me backtrack a little
All
bit though,
right.
because it's a little history behind trying to find somewhere to go, which kind of has me navigating the way that I'm doing now. So I went to all right. So I know a name you may remember, Matt Boyce.
Yes, I know Matt. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes.
I went to high school with Matt.
From the Nashville area, he worked for Burt Prentice for many years.
Yep. But at one point in time, we lived in the same apartment complex, and this was about 2008, maybe 2009. He had did a call up, went up to ECW, did the job for Tyson Kidd, came home, and I ran into him, and I was like, "Oh snap, what's up, bro?" And I was asking him like where to go. He couldn't really give me any information. And then there was a couple other people from my area that I ran into, asked them the same thing. They wouldn't give me any information. Come to find out, fast forward some years later, having a Facebook discussion with somebody, I crack jokes, man. I crack jokes on
Right,
Facebook.
right, right.
Talk crazy, and every once in a while I say something that's a little provocative. And we was having like a back and forth between me and this one guy where we were arguing, but we weren't really arguing. It was just a difference in opinions. So clicked on this page and I'm like, man, who the hell this guy think he is? Clicked on this page. He was in the middle of the ring with a title belt. So I messaged him, was like, hey man, this is something I'm trying to get into. You're a wrestler? He was like, yeah. He was like, I'm not big time, but we have a show that we run. Come on out, blah, blah, blah. I'll introduce you to some of the guys. And it was as simple as that.
Wow, wow.
As
And so
simple as that.
did you just start going every day, every week, training in their ring in their building?
Yep, as much ring time as possible from the jump. Because I realized I started a little later than everybody else may have wanted to. And I went into this knowing I have a limited amount of time in the ring. So I was like, hey, I need to be in the ring as much as possible. I need to figure out everything.
Is this somebody I know? Who was the guy that you?
So one guy I'm not gonna name because me and him have a little personal
All
situation
right, I understand.
that we got to get cleared up before I give him any credit on anything. Um, Another guy, David Barmore. For a while he went by Cataclysm. He's now going by Draven Morrow. I credit him for my training. I credit this guy named Josh Cross for my training. They had worked in the Tuckerman and Newport area.
I know the name Josh Cross is I'm familiar with him.
Mhm.
But you did you come down? See, there was a time period I didn't watch local wrestling before I started my podcast back.
Mhm.
Did you work Tuckerman on a regular basis, or?
Yeah, so I started out in Tuckerman.
Okay.
I started out in Tuckerman and like going there, not saying it was any heat or anything, but going there, my question was always, why does nobody know about this? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing to push this? What are we doing to get new eyes on the product? What are we doing to get new people in the building? What are we doing? Because, like I said, nothing against anybody. And I
No,
hope.
I mean this is the truth about
Mhm.
Tuckerman. Tuckerman, I'm gonna tell you, I went to Tuckerman one night, and I bet there was 150 to 200 people there. I mean, it was packed. It
Yeah.
was to the rafters. And there's nothing to do in Tuckerman, Newport, that area.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is that they really weren't watching the matches.
No,
They were talking to their neighbors, and
yeah.
they weren't actually, they didn't come to watch wrestling. They come to socialize. It was the weirdest thing. One of the best buildings in the area. I don't think I've ever said that. And talk about how the seating is, and I've worked Tuckerman. I've been there a couple times to do something, and I love it. But you're right. There is still that you can't just. I give this example: Domino's Pizza. When you turn on TV and you watch sports, how many Domino's Pizza commercials? Would
Exactly.
Domino's Pizza just quit advertising? Would
No.
they just say, "No, we're just going to quit. We're not going to advertise ever again"? And that's what happens at Tuckerman. Great arena, usually pretty darn good talent came in from there. You talk about Austin Lane, Matt Williams, Mike Anthony, a whole list of guys that started right there. All right, before we go any further,
Mm-hmm.
let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back. I got to talk about you starting with Memphis Wrestling and a few other things. All right, back from commercial. We're talking about Tuckerman and how you kind of started there and it's like that with every small promotion. And I always say some little, Dyersburg area promotion. I worked them all as a manager. And you just have to give or take what they give you, or you have to fight for it.
Yeah.
And I was at the age that I just was trying to get my guys matches. So I would take uh, two teams in, tell them exactly what I was going to do. This is what we want. Are you cool with that? Yeah, we'd go do the opening match, and I'm bragging about my guys, not about me. They would blow them away, and then they'd want them to come back for the main event, semi-main, whatever the next week. That's just what we did, and I was able to book most of everything I did. But your story is unique about Memphis wrestling. Now, Memphis wrestling, the Jerry Lawlers, the Bill Dundees, all those guys. You remember all those guys?
Yeah, most definitely.
And you was part fan of growing up. Did you ever go to Mid-South Coliseum?
No, so I never get a chance to go to the Mid-South Coliseum. But I am familiar with all of those guys. I always knew Memphis was pretty much, regardless if people want to admit it or not, for a long time, and even still to this day, Memphis was the mecca when it comes down to not just becoming a talent, but developing talent. Like the who's, anybody that you can name of has went through Memphis, whether it's The Rock, Kurt Angle, Brock, Brian Danielson.
You
Uh,
name it. You're right. You're right. It was like that, and it kept being like that. Then there was a amount of years that Jeff Jarrett, Brian Christopher, and maybe PG-13 were the only people pushed. Everybody else was either, the big guys, the names of the big guys, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee.
Mhm,
And then you had Memphis Wrestling. This is what Dustin has done, and I've talked to him about this, and you know better than anybody,
mhm.
is he's been able to make new Memphis wrestling stars, that
Yep.
brand new people that came up that never had a chance to be on Memphis Wrestling. So tell the story about the first Memphis Wrestling tapings and where you were at that day.
Okay. All right. So
And you talk about this on an interview, and people think maybe you're not shooting, but this
no,
is
it's
for
all true.
shoot. This is what
It's
happened,
all,
right?
it's all real. So okay. I was working for a company. I'll put it out there. I don't care. I was working for a company called RWE. They did a lot of shady practices. It just is what it is, part of the wrestling game. Learning experiences. I'm not gonna bash anybody, but it just is what it is.
Oh, I
Uh,
got paid. I got paid $3. Supposed to get paid 25 or something like that. People stab you in the back, everything. So I know exactly what you're talking
um,
about.
one night at a show there, in comes Derek King and Dustin. And so me being me, not saying I'm a locker room leader, but I'm always the type of person, if somebody comes in, I've never seen them, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Plus,
Right, right.
knew I was already familiar with Dustin from when he was wrestling. I was familiar with Derek because, like I said, I followed the product. I know how much of a hand Derek had when it comes down to helping develop these bigger stars, a lot of who I mentioned earlier. So speaking with them, and Dustin was like, "Hey man, I'm not familiar with you, but I was told to check you out." I was like, "Cool." Went outside, did my match, came back, they was gone. Now I hear this news about the Wrestle Center opening up, blah blah blah, XYZ. I'm like, well, if they extended the courtesy to come to our show, and if it's supposed to be a working relationship between the two companies, like we were told by a certain somebody, it only makes right for me to go out there and show love like they show love to us. Me going to the Wrestle Center, the first show there was literally that. I was not, I wasn't booked when Memphis Wrestling started. I wasn't on the roster. I wasn't looked at. I wasn't known. Dustin knew nothing about me at all.
You bought a ticket, you sat in the seat, and you watched wrestling
Yep.
just for making yourself known that you were interested in being part of the pro. Who did you approach after the matches?
Also, this is the crazy thing about it. I wasn't even trying to go there to get a job. I wasn't trying to say, hey, book me,
Oh,
book.
wow.
I was just going there to show love like they came and show love to us.
Right, right.
It was as simple as that. Um, Ended up having a conversation with Dustin because if y'all can go back and find the footage, it's literally the first episodes of the Wrestle Center being there. I'm the biggest person in the crowd, sitting there with a logo similar to this on my shirt. Ended up talking to Dustin. We was talking for like 5-10 minutes. Some kind of way the conversation led to me saying, "Hey man, I didn't come out here for this, but I'll be stupid not to say it. If you need me, you got me." He was like, "Okay, bring your gear." Showed up to the next show. They didn't have anything for me. Went and sat out in the crowd again. Next show, came back. I was told to bring my gear, and there was all types of ideas that they had for me for bringing me on. But ultimately, it ended up, "Hey man, bring your gear. We're going to put you in the match. We want to see how you work in the ring." They put me in the ring, and it's been moving since day one.
I love it. I love the story. So they put you in the ring on television.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in your shoes. I told the story with if you'll go and listen to Sleazy E from last couple of weeks ago. I tell the story about being on television. Uh, was it a whole different animal for you in the sense that when you're standing in the middle of the ring, you're used to working uh, these indie shows in this area, but you've given a certain time limit. I want you to get this over. How was that kind of scary the first couple of times you did tapings, or did you just say, I got this?
No, it was one of the things I already had because I was already familiar with it. So during COVID, when COVID happened, everything in the area shut down
Right, right.
everywhere. But they were still running shows in Georgia. So me and a handful of my homies, we was going to Georgia like literally every week, and we was working their shows, and they were running not to the extent of what we're doing now, but they were running a recording program similar to that. And then we having to work empty shows. Of course, we had to learn how to work for the camera. So coming in, it wasn't a big deal as far as working the camera and working what they want us to get over. The hardest thing was learning the camera positions and structuring. All right, so you see me, man, and I really haven't broken into a lot of stuff that I really like to do just yet. I like to do a lot of running around and a lot of bouncing around the ring for my size. I had to learn how to change my angles to make things resonate on camera the way that they would anywhere else. But not just
And that's a learning experience. You're telling something to, people that have never done TV, and I haven't done it a lot, but knowing where those cameras are and making, as a manager, I had it kind of easy. I knew where the camera was, and when I wanted to get on the camera, then I easily be able to get on the camera and do something silly. But it is a learning experience. I think the show, and I say this, I've said this 100 times on Rolling Into Memphis, but I think about 100 to now to 115, it seems like it's just so good. There's very few mistakes, uh, misses that I call misses. There's just very few things that unless you just want to pull it apart, hey, blah, blah, blah. But you got a well-oiled machine. Now you got this well-oiled machine that's not as well-oiled yet when you first start with Memphis Wrestling. But how do you now your size, me going to Newport, by me seeing you live, you were different to me than the rest of the roster, because the rest of the roster there's not. Maybe you wrestled against Maz Kruger. He was big. What about, I'm trying to think of who else but you're the biggest guy, even with the gun show. You're one of the big guys and you stand out. But what did you do back? There's a difference with standing out in front of the fans, standing out backstage with the boys. So what did you tell yourself you would do to stand out with the boys backstage and get your spot in, because there's just limited spots for the main guy.
Well, I had two main objectives. One was not have people look at me as like a Samoa Joe clone, and then two, get people to take what I'm doing with Fat Jitsu serious. Like even Dustin thought Fat Jitsu was like a joke gimmick, and I was like, nah, it's just let me do my thing and you'll see. So those were the two biggest things. Other than that, just maximizing my time on screen. You know how locker rooms are. Everybody's cordial, everybody's friendly, but every once in a while, it's that one person that like, I don't like that person, blah, blah, blah. Why is he here? I had to kick that out of my head and focus on what I was doing in front of the crowd.
And that's not only for professional wrestling, but that is a huge thing about professional wrestling, and because it depends on a lot of social that people don't see. There's a lot of social that goes on. Same thing as in a workplace uh, environment of any kind. There's norms. There's things that you can do and can't do. There's things that at one promotion might be cool to go ahead and do, in another promotion it's not, and you have to learn that. So I want to tell you, when you set yourself apart from everybody, to me, it's when I said this guy is easily going to be a Heritage champion. He can easily leave Memphis Wrestling and he can go somewhere else. And it was the interview that everyone loved. It's a show enough interview. Dustin says he had no idea what you were going to say. And now the show enough thing comes from a rap, right?
No, it comes from a movie.
A movie. Okay. Yeah. I believe you told me that before. Yeah. What movie is it?
It comes from The Last Dragon.
I'm gonna have to go watch that again.
Man, it's a classic movie. It came out in 1983 or 84. Classic movie.
And I was a junior in high school, by the way. So yeah, I'm old.
All right, so you remember how in the 70s going into the 80s, kung fu movies was the thing.
I loved them. I rented them. All the time. There was a place here in Jonesboro. It was 5 movies for 5 days for $5 at Hastings. And I would do kung fu movies one time. I would do, just all kinds of really horrible, bad movies. But I love kung fu movies. Yeah.
Nice. Now the Last Dragon is it's about Bruce Leroy.
Yes, Bruce. I know. I remember all that. Yeah, but I don't remember showing up. I'm gonna have to go back and see that.
So sure enough, although he's one of the main villains. If you look at it and if you follow Kung Fu lore, he's really not a villain. He's just somebody trying to test his skill against somebody else who's on his level and or better than him. But sure enough, he had the whole guard, man. He had his whole crew. When he made the entrance, the whole grand entrance, who's the master? I'm the master. I'm the meanest. I'm the toughest. Sure enough. Go back and watch that movie. When you see when the movie theater scene happens, it'll all make sense.
But I mean, the fans were behind you, but did you say, damn, I did it? Did you feel like you really did it that day? That
So
you
I
got them over?
so I kind of knew it was gonna work just based off of what I saw off of like major TV wrestling companies. Anybody who had a call and response was instantly up. Like if you think about R-Truth, he hits the ring, what's up? Crowd yells, what's up? When Austin was doing the what chants.
Moose does one that gets the crowd going. I love that. So yeah.
Who else? Road Dogg. You
Yep.
come out, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. They will quote that word for word. So I know if I found a way to make the fans, or I don't necessarily just want to say fans, because I feel like the people in the crowd are just as big as the show as we are. If we can find a way to make the people in the audience just as much as part of the show to where they're being seen and or heard, you got them in the palm of your hand.
You think Memphis Wrestling succeeds in doing that? You got such a core of people that are out there every show. They love you guys, and it is. I said something to you about this that if you believe in the people that you go see, you start believing in them, and you treat the fans with respect.
Yep.
A lot of times the babyface heel thing doesn't really matter. It matters that and then when you do something as a heel really bad, and you've got all these friends, fans, whatever you want to call them, they're even more pissed off at you because you shouldn't have done that. You were nice to them after the matches. You shouldn't have done something. So it actually works really well. Now we're gonna talk some more stuff on Patreon that I don't want to put on the main feed, but I want to ask you this question, and I want to put it in a correct way. With as many guys, the Mike Anthony, Gun Show, Derek King, the guys like that are over, you fit right in there. But is there a time where you say, okay, it's my time and I don't get it, I got to move on somewhere else? And I'm saying this because I feel like that's what's going to happen to people that stay a long time in Memphis wrestling. They're going to say, I'm done. He didn't push me. And he's already had some people leave, and I know that some of the names are gone for that very reason. Do you stick it out, or do you say, okay, I need to go somewhere else?
I think it all comes down to, because you're right. I do know some people that left. I haven't had conversations with them, but I do remember people that were there that left. I think it comes down to having an honest conversation with yourself, but also studying your own product to know what to expect. You know a promoter is going to want a certain thing. You know what a promoter may like based off of what they've already presented you. I use me as an example because I'm the best example I can use. I know I don't fit the mold of what most wrestling promoters may want until they see me in the ring or until they see me interact with a crowd. I mean, it happened so I can shed some light on it. When I went up to AEW, they looked at me and were like, oh, nope. But when I got in the ring, it was like, oh, shit.
You did visit AEW. We talked about it next time. Remember to That's
Yeah.
just me. But and I'm not a big timing guys. That's not what I'm doing. I just I can help, I will help. Uh, but was you able to? You weren't able to work dark or anything, but was you able to work out in front of some of the guys?
Yeah, we was able to get in there and kind of mix it up a little bit and kind of show a few things. But kind of going back to staying in Memphis or moving around. I tell everybody you got to do what you feel is best for you. Sometimes staying around and building the anticipation and letting the crowd demand for that push for you as a talent. Sometimes it's better than the promoter saying, "Hey, this is my guy." But you got to be realistic with yourself and you got to be realistic with your product. Sometimes you don't fit the mold of what certain people may want. I'm not saying that's the case with everybody. I understand everybody has their own opinions and their own relationships with certain people. But at some point, you gotta evaluate what you're doing as a talent and ask those hard questions. Am I doing what I need to do?
To
Am
get
I
further
building
into business?
am I building
Yeah.
other people? Am I executing the way that I need to execute? Am I delivering on my promos? Um, am I phoning it in the ring? Because I got some stories. I got some stories about ending matches with people who like to phone it in. Um, so it's weighing everything on both sides of the scale, man. It's you just got to have that real honest conversation, not only with yourself but with the promoter. Ask the promoter, like, "Hey, man, what are we doing? What are we building to?
What direction are you
Yeah,
taking me? What are
what's
we going
long
to do?
term?
Because
Like,
yeah, you're at that stage. This is not, and whatever. I say this all the time. This is not Dyersburg, Tennessee. It's not Tuckerman. This
mhm,
is Memphis television. This is a different stage in professional wrestling. For you to move, when you move, you will move to move forward. It's
mhm,
going to be either another TV show, is what you need to do, or you need to start working everywhere, going to all the independents that you can go all over the United States. You don't get better than the part. You got to work better people. You got to work with people that are so good that it makes your life easy. So, of the big guys that you worked, of the big names, as I like to call them, the name wrestlers. Now, you was put over some big name wrestlers,
mhm.
and it meant a lot to, I think, meant a lot to K-Toomer, the wrestling character, uh, because it started pushing you to that level. Did it mean a lot for you going over these guys, or was it just you were so humbled that you said, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,"
Oh
kind
yeah,
of guy?
most definitely. The one that popped it off was the first one, the Rhino match.
Yeah.
Um, not trying to pull the curtain behind or unveil too much, but if I remember correctly, I was booked to lose that match.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Rhino came in, had a conversation with me, and next thing I know, 20 minutes later, they came to me and was like, "Yeah, Rhino said he's gonna put you over." So that meant the world to me. And a lot of people, some people might hear, "Oh, it's Rhino." Like, nah, man, it's Rhino, ECW original, ECW
Oh, big. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah. Big
last
time.
ori-
Big time.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
last original ECW champion, TNA heavyweight champion, multi-time champion all over WWE. The man has been all over the world and has been a big part of wrestling since I was a kid. And he came in and had a conversation with me and was like, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna put him over." Like that meant the world to me.
Was
Uh,
that match as stiff as it looked?
yeah, yeah, we was laying him in.
That looked like a real fight to me. I was
Yeah,
just like, and I seen scenes of it before it went on. I don't do spoilers, so
mhm.
someone had sent me a clip, or someone put up a clip in a reel, and I was just like, damn. So who has hit you the hardest of the big names there? Uh,
Ooh, shit. Um, it's crazy because he's on my screen right now. Big Con.
Big Con.
It's a spot where me and him are fighting in through the crowd. He starts to get the upper hand. He rolls in the ring and rolls back out and gives me like the biggest slap I've ever taken. So when I popped up and slapped him back, that was legit.
You just reacted to what he had just done to you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he hit me, and I was like, "Oh, this a receipt moment." And when he rolled back out the ring, I popped him back, and he gave me this grin, and I was like, "Yeah, we in for a slugfest."
Awesome, awesome. I love that. You have to every once in a while, you know, or you do like me and you run. So that's what if I know someone's stiff, I don't want to be in the ring with them, and I go, no, we're done, we're done. All right, we're gonna close up the regular version here, the regular show. What I want you to do is put all your shit over, what website, how to follow you, all of that, and tell them what all you do. You make music. You make this, you make t-shirts, you'll take an order. Somebody wants 10 shirts, you'll take an order right now. Let me get somebody on the phone. No, but you do everything. Go ahead and put your stuff over.
All right, man. Of course, on Facebook, Big Man K-Toomer. Follow me. I'm at the limit, so you'll have to follow me. Instagram, K-Toomer70. Same with Twitter. TikTok, I believe it's the same, but I'm just now getting used to TikTok, so it just type in K-Toomer, it should pull me up. YouTube, having to redo my YouTube page because my old one got hacked.
Oh, that was a story. God.
So I'm building from the ground up. So add the YouTube, subscribe to it. I'm about to start dropping more, a whole lot more content once I'm out of this Facebook restriction thing to where I can kind of promote the way that I normally would. But if you don't want to follow that, just check us out on Memphis Wrestling every Saturday.
Right on, guys. K-Toomer, I appreciate you coming, sitting down and I got a couple questions that on Patreon, and you mentioned Road Dogg. I don't think I've told my Road Dogg story, so I got to tell you my Road Dogg story. All right, guys, same bad time, same bad channel. Remember, this is the 6th annual, all episodes Memphis in May. That's right. Same bad time, same bad channel on the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Be there. And as everyone knows, and Kate, you know this, Toomer. You know this. I love my mama.
How long can I do the thing?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Me too.
Remember, all episodes Memphis in May. Go to stspod.club. Be there.